Why does fear often feel like a wall, impenetrable and immovable? Fear, a familiar foe to many, serves as both a protector and a prison. Originating from the deepest parts of our brains, this emotion signals danger, real or imagined, triggering our age-old fight or flight response. Yet, in our modern world, these alarms often sound without real threat, holding us back from opportunities and growth. Now, imagine transforming this barrier into a gateway. I remember standing backstage, heart pounding as my name was called. There, enveloped in the shadows just off stage, I could feel the weight of every eye in the auditorium on me. My palms were slick with sweat, my breath shallow. The mere idea of stepping out under those bright lights to speak was enough to make my stomach churn. Each heartbeat felt like a drum roll, amplifying my dread. This wasn't just nervousness. It was a visceral, overwhelming fear that seemed to root me to the spot. I recall thinking, can I really do this? What if I forget everything I'm supposed to say? The fear of public speaking, known as glossophobia, is among the most common fears, and in that moment, it had me in its clutches. As I wrestled with my anxiety, I realized that this fear was more than just a reaction. It was a barrier that I had constructed in my mind. That was my moment of confrontation, but what actually is fear? Let's dig deeper. Fear, a primal instinct, yet often an overreaction to perceived threats. At the core of this reaction is the amygdala, a tiny almond-shaped structure nested deep within the brain. This is the watchtower, alert and ever vigilant, scanning for any sign of danger. When it perceives a threat, real or imagined, it reacts instantaneously, igniting the fight or flight response. This response floods the body with adrenaline, heightening senses and preparing muscles for immediate action. Heart rate accelerates, breathing quickens, and energy reserves are mobilized. It's an exquisite orchestration of biology meant to protect us, a system honed through millennia to ensure survival against predators and perilous situations. However, in the modern world, the landscape of danger has shifted dramatically. The threats we face are less about physical survival and more about psychological and emotional challenges. Yet, the amygdala doesn't quite distinguish between a charging lion and a challenging public speech or a looming deadline. It reacts just as fiercely, triggering the same intense physiological reactions. This misdirection can be paralyzing. Fear in this context is not a reflection of imminent physical danger, but rather an emotional and psychological response to stress, uncertainty, and the pressure of expectations. Understanding this can be profoundly liberating. By recognizing that the intense physical sensations are simply a biological response out of context, individuals can begin to rationalize their fears. Moreover, acknowledging that these responses were crucial for the survival of ancestors offers a new perspective. It allows for a compassionate understanding of one's own reactions to fear. It's not about being irrational or weak. It's about an ancient system operating in a world where the rules have dramatically changed. Thus, by understanding the roots and mechanics of fear, it becomes possible to start rewiring responses to it. With this knowledge, fear can transform from a daunting blockade to a manageable, even useful signal. Understanding is the first step to overcoming. Conquering fear isn't about removing it entirely, but learning to manage it. Indeed, the journey to overcome fear begins with understanding and strategy. Let's dive into some actionable steps that can help turn the tide against the fears that bind us. Firstly, identification and acknowledgement of specific fears is crucial. It's about staring down those shadowy figures of fear and calling them by name. Whether it's a fear of heights, public speaking, or failure, knowing exactly what you're dealing with is the first step towards empowerment. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could happen? Often, dissecting the fear reveals that the outcomes are not as catastrophic as the fear itself suggests. Once fears are identified, the next step is gradual exposure and desensitization. This technique, often used in therapy, involves slowly and safely exposing oneself to the source of fear. If public speaking sends shivers down your spine, start by speaking to a mirror, progress to a small group of friends, and then perhaps a larger audience. Each small exposure reduces the fear's power bit by bit. It's like dipping your toes into the ocean to acclimatize before diving in. Cognitive reframing is another powerful tool. This involves changing your perspective on fear from seeing it as a looming threat to viewing it as a challenge to be met and conquered. For instance, instead of thinking, "I'm terrified of failing this project," reframe it to, "This project is a challenge I'm excited to tackle and learn from." This shift in mindset can transform paralyzing fear into a motivating challenge. Another element in the arsenal against fear is the development of a support system. Surrounding yourself with encouraging friends, mentors, and communities can provide the external encouragement needed to face fears. They can offer a different perspective, push you towards growth, and provide comfort when you falter. Visualization also plays a key role. Imagine yourself successfully overcoming your fear. This mental rehearsal can build confidence and reduce anxiety. Athletes often use this technique before competitions to enhance performance. Why not use it to conquer fears? Additionally, maintaining a fear journal can be remarkably therapeutic. Documenting when you feel afraid and how you respond can provide insights into patterns and triggers. Over time, you may notice progress that you hadn't realized and patterns that need new strategies. Lastly, remember to celebrate every victory, no matter how small. Each time you face a fear, you erode its power over you. Reward yourself for these moments of bravery. This not only reinforces positive behavior, but also makes the journey enjoyable. Small steps can lead to giant leaps in overcoming our fears. By methodically applying these strategies, fear becomes not a blockade, but a gateway to growth and resilience. Through identification, exposure, reframing, support, visualization, and celebration, the once towering walls of fear become stepping stones to a braver existence. So, let's continue the journey, armed with tools and courage, to not only face our fears, but to rise above them, transforming our lives in the process. Meet those who have turned their fears into stepping stones. Imagine a woman named Emily who for years harbored an intense fear of failure. This fear paralyzed her from pursuing her dream of starting a bakery. However, Emily's love for baking was too strong to ignore. One day, she decided to take a small but significant step by enrolling in a culinary arts course. This decision marked the beginning of her journey to overcoming her fear. With each new skill she mastered, her confidence grew. 2 years later, Emily opened her own bakery. Today, it's a thriving hub in her community, celebrated for its delightful pastries and warm atmosphere. Then there's Michael, a young man with a deep-seated fear of heights. This fear kept him from joining his friends on hiking trips and experiencing adventures. But Michael's turning point came when he decided to confront his fear head-on by going skydiving. The experience was terrifying, yet exhilarating. It taught him that he could face his fears and emerge stronger. Now, Michael not only hikes but leads groups on mountain expeditions, sharing his story to inspire others. These stories are not just about personal triumphs. They are about transformations. Each of these individuals used their fear as a catalyst, turning what once held them back into a force that propelled them forward. They remind us that the journey through fear can lead to unexpected destinations. Think of Anna, who always dreamt of being a writer but feared what others would think of her work. She started writing in secret, honing her craft without any eyes on her. Eventually, she gathered the courage to share her stories publicly. To her surprise, her work resonated with many, leading her to publish a best-selling novel. Anna's story underscores that often our fears are built on assumptions that never hold true under scrutiny. Their victories remind us that fear is not an end, but a part of the journey. The journey through fear is personal and fraught with challenges, yet ripe with opportunity. Imagine standing at a crossroads where one path is worn, familiar, and easy, while the other is untraveled, bristling with the unknown. This is the daily decision we face when confronting our fears. Yet it's in the choice to take the less traveled road where transformation begins. Today, take a moment to identify one fear that holds you back. It could be fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even fear of success. Write it down. Seeing it on paper can diminish its power, making it more manageable. Next to it, write down one small, actionable step you can take to face this fear. This could be as simple as speaking up in a meeting, joining a new class, or asking for feedback on a project. Action, no matter how small, is a powerful antidote to fear. Each step forward, even a tentative one, is a declaration of courage. It's about telling yourself, yes, I am scared, but I am not controlled by my fear. Remember, the act of facing your fears doesn't need to be monumental to be meaningful. It's the cumulative effect of many small acts that leads to significant change. By consistently choosing action over inaction, you reinforce your ability to confront and conquer your fears.